This is part 5 of COVID research ideas for aspiring scientists. This one is on Paxlovid. Now, it's pretty surprising that there's scant literature on early versus late timing for Paxlovid. I could really only find one paper on this. This one right here, where it only looked at patients over a month time period, from April to May of 2022. And we know that earlier on in the pandemic, the viral load peaked around the times that symptom onset began. However, now it looks like the viral load is peaking between days 3 and 5 after symptom onset, which means that the Paxlovid prescription would be taken earlier in the disease course with current recommendations, and it brings up the question, do we need to delay Paxlovid a little bit to have it match more with the peak viral load, or do we want to make sure that we're getting it as early as possible prior to that peak viral load? Now, at least back before we have our documented shift of peak viral load, having an early dose of Paxlovid defined as less than 5 days or equal to 5 days after symptoms initiate, that increased viral clearance over a shorter period of time and resulted in shorter periods of viral shedding in that dose range, and then their late Paxlovid dose was beyond 5 days, so between 5 and 10 days. And then with no Paxlovid dose. So at least for earlier variants of COVID, where the viral load we know was peaking at near symptom onset, this was a very good decision. It was a very good thing to do. But what we really need is a time-varied study where we look at Paxlovid courses given at different start points. So at days 1 of symptom onset on the same day versus day 3, 5, 7, and 10, something like that, to figure out if we're having better effects earlier on, mid or later on, in addition to preventing the quote-unquote COVID rebound. Now, I'm going to show you 2 preprints that are still undergoing peer review. Take these with a grain of salt, but they're really the only thing I could find on viral kinetics with Paxlovid doses at different time points. This paper right here is looking at some clinical data paired with some mathematical modeling, where their data is from early to late 2022, where placebo is on the left, Paxlovid treatment is on the right, where they're starting treatment on average 3 days after symptom onset, going from day 1 to day 14 of treatment, showing Paxlovid improvements using the viral kinetic model, where we're starting treatment after the highest viral loads have already been reached, or we're already on that down tilt, which again begs the question, what's going to be happening if we do it earlier in the course of the disease? Is it going to be additionally beneficial, or is it going to be something where it doesn't allow the immune system to stack up, and then you sort of have this huge spike in COVID virions after the treatment with Paxlovid? And that's sort of what this paper does, this preprint, where it's looking at earlier treatment versus later treatment with Paxlovid, as well as a 10-day theoretic course using their mathematical models. But this only looks at 3 patients. They have 3 patients where they were following very closely clinically, and then they're creating math models based off of that, and then they're extrapolating from those math models, where in each of these 3 patients, after the initial dose, when they're having it around the peak viral load, it is resulting in a increase in COVID following this period of linear decrease, where they then extrapolate out to a 10-day Paxlovid course, where you have significant rebound viral increases again after the 10-day course, but you have a complete clearance in patients 2 and 3. And then they even tried staggering, and that seemed to elongate the duration of symptoms versus just doing a singular 10-day course. And while this is all additional information very interesting, it doesn't tell us what happens if you take it earlier before the peak viral load versus later. And now we have that opportunity to be taking Paxlovid earlier than the peak viral load as opposed to at the peak viral load or later. So what will happen is sort of the question. And then which course of treatment would be the most ideal to suggest to patients? That's the ultimate research question of this. Is, do we want to make sure we're getting that Paxlovid course as early as possible to try and get it before we hit that peak viral load, or do we want to try and target that peak viral load to have the reduction during the highest values?